So you finally started taking the gym seriously. You're lifting consistently, you bought your first tub of protein, and you're actually eating like someone who wants to build muscle. And then boom, your face blows up overnight. New breakouts right when you start doing everything correctly. I was done with it, so I eventually got on Accutane, and I'll finish it next week, by the way. But that's a story for another day. So you do what everyone does. And how I began. You Google it, and the internet has a verdict ready. It's the protein. Your whey protein powder is destroying your skin. Throw out that tub. Some random short is basically telling you to pick a side, gains or clear skin, and you have to choose one. Let's actually get into this, because the real answer is way more useful than stop taking protein powder. And it tells you something about your own skin that nobody making those videos or studies bothered to explain. Here's the short version, and I'll give it to you now, because I'm not going to bait you for another 10 minutes. The jury is still out, but a decent amount of science says whey protein worsens acne in teens. And there is a real link between certain foods and acne. However, in my opinion, a lot of the research on this topic is way too flawed to be conclusive. Most of the studies in this area have very few participants, like less than 10, and the more major ones, like that one Jordanian study, have really important limitations. The Jordanian study doesn't account for activity levels at all. They get their subjects from a fitness center, but somebody who goes in once a week for some light lifting is going to have a very different activity level and thus sweat levels from somebody who lifts hard 5 days a week and cardio every day. So, whey causes acne is not an absolute truth, and abandoning your protein powder is going to leave you confused and probably still breaking out. Because acne is a process, and once you understand the process, the protein question kind of answers itself. So does the much bigger question: why is this happening to me, and what can I do about it? Let's start with why your skin is like this in the first place. Here's a number that should make you feel less alone. More than 85% of teenagers get acne. That's not a coincidence, and that's not because everyone is bad at washing their faces until they turn 20. It's because of all the hormonal stuff going on under the hood. Your body is flooding itself with growth signals. One of the biggest ones, that I've spoken about before on this channel, is a hormone called IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor 1. It's the thing telling you to get taller, put on muscle, and grow up. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to, and you definitely want it. But IGF-1 also has side effects. It tells the oil glands in your skin to ramp up. More oil, faster skin cell turnover, clogged pores. And then the bacteria inflammation that turn a clogged pore into actual acne. So, the same hormonal surge that's building your body is also setting your face up to break out. That's the real reason for teen acne. Okay, so where does the protein shake come in? Most protein powder is whey, and whey comes from milk. Two things about that matter here. One, whey is loaded with an amino acid called leucine, which is fantastic for building muscle. That's literally why it works, but it also spikes your insulin pretty hard. And two, milk proteins nudge your IGF-1 up, and you already know what IGF-1 does to your skin. Both insulin and IGF-1 feed into the same master growth switches inside your cell, called the mTOR pathway. It's basically a build stuff signal, and is a real driver behind how you build muscle. So the exact pathway you're trying to fire up in the gym is related to the one firing up the oil on your skin. Your gains and your breakouts have the same fuel. So, a big scoop of whey sends your body a chemical message. More insulin, more IGF-1, even though you're kind of drowning in it already, and thus more oil. That's the actual mechanism, and where the link is real. But here's where the fear-mongering videos fall apart, and where you should get skeptical of anyone selling you plant protein. Not all dairy does this the same way. The research keeps finding that skim milk has a stronger link to acne than whole milk, which might be the opposite of what you guess. And that is where I think the answer lies. Because here's what a protein shake has in common with a ton of the other things you eat. It raises insulin and IGF-1. The biggest input into that same pathway is high glycemic foods. Quick carbs, things that digest faster. And if you've watched my cutting video, you know exactly what these are. Full sugar sodas, juices, white bread, the highly processed snacks that taste incredible, and most of what lands on a school lunch tray. All of it spikes insulin hard. It feeds the exact same process, and you're eating way more of it, way more often than one scoop of whey after a workout. Now here's the part that actually matters, and the part nobody making these other videos will tell you. Look at that list again. The soda in the fridge, the cafeteria lunch, the snacks in the pantry. How much of that did you choose? You didn't buy the groceries, you didn't write the school menu, and you probably can't change what's stocked in your house. The single most blamed thing, your protein shake, is the one food on the entire list you actually picked for yourself. Meanwhile, the food environment that's doing most of the work stays invisible because somebody else bought it and put it in front of you. However, there's another aspect to high glycemic foods, and thus acne, that you may have more control over. Pre-workout carbs. Recently, I'm sure you've seen everyone and their mother calling carbs the holy grail for building muscle. I've even seen some people say carbs are more important than protein for building muscle. That's preposterous, but also a discussion for another day. The bottom line is that carbs are important, but so is your skin. So you might have to make some trade-offs. If you're really concerned about your skin health, I would recommend switching from your rice cakes or Rice Krispies or whatever pre-workout carbs you lose, and instead eating lower glycemic carbs, possibly as part of a full meal a few hours before your lift. This will ensure you still have the energy required. However, it'll also avoid that important insulin spike that seems to cause acne. So, what do you do with all this information? First, if you suspect your protein shake is the trigger for your acne, test it instead of guessing. Drop that shake for a few weeks. Skin is slow, so make sure to give it real time. If your skin clears up, you got your answer. And maybe you should stop. But if you're not quite ready to give up your protein shakes, you can try this. Because the most major reason behind the acne is likely that insulin spike, make sure your shake spikes your insulin less. 3 different ways to do this come to mind. 1. Add fat. If you were making your shake with skim milk earlier, now try 2% or whole milk. The fat will slow down digestion and thus reduce an insulin spike, though, admittedly, it will make the macros worse. Alternatively, you can add some sort of fiber supplement. This will change the texture of the shake, and you might not like it, but that's for you to decide. 3. Switch to casein protein. It's not necessarily as ideal as whey, but it is way slower digesting than normal whey protein. But if none of these insulin-based strategies work, it might be an issue with the mTOR pathway from earlier. So, if you're still not ready to cut out shakes, try a plant-based protein, as those hit the mTOR pathway differently and less severely. To be clear, these swaps are strictly my ideas and are merely educated guesses based on known mechanisms. So their effectiveness is yet unknown, though I, obviously biasedly, think they would work, and many of them have worked for me. Outside of protein shakes, cutting back on the obvious sugary drinks usually does more for your skin than swapping protein brands ever will. You're not chasing some perfect restrictive diet here. You're just turning down the easy stuff that pours fuel on the fire when you can. But the most honest thing I can tell you, sometimes it's just being a teenager. Sometimes your skin breaks out because you're 15 and your IGF-1 is doing its job, and no food is going to fully fix that. If it's bad, or if it's painful, or if it's really messing with your confidence, a dermatologist can help you because they have the real tools for the part that food can't touch. Food is just one contributing factor. It's definitely not everything. So, do you have to choose between gains and clear skin? No, that was a fake choice the whole time. But sometimes you might have to make trade-offs, like pre-workout carbs or the best tasting brand of protein powder. Figure out what you can actually control, and give yourself a break on the rest. Muscle Maurice, signing off.